Hello, this is the final project, the CSSZenGarden project for Team 10, I believe we are. Brett Stark, Stephanie Goodwin, and Daniel Brewster. As you can see, we tried to go with a pirate theme. The things that really made this work for us was Daniel finding a pretty good parchment background that you can see here. Each container is a piece of parchment. Also, a font that we found that is pretty resembling of like the font that you'd see from the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. One really cool touch that they had was they actually, in that font, replaced out the $ with the skull and crossbones here, which we were able to use using some before and after pseudo classes to add this in to our CSSZenGarden title, which looks pretty cool. And then the piece de resistance is, of course, the pirate ship. This is Stephanie's baby right here, and she did an amazing job with it. She created an SVG in, I believe, Photoshop, and using that SVG, we were able to add it on with another pseudo class, a before pseudo class, and basically added an animation for it so it would continually patrol the seas back and forth. If you notice, it's kind of sinking underneath the parchment at times, just to make it look a little like it's riding on waves, which I think is pretty cool. As it shrinks, there are a few different captures we have here. One of them being right here. When it gets to a small screen size, you can see the right corner, the right column of the screen goes back down to the bottom. Right here, and we have these two just kind of sitting by each other because they're both small. As you keep going, we'll get to the smallest media query here, and then it eventually drops so everything is their own screen, there's on its own line. Also, because it gets small enough, patrolling is no longer necessary for a pirate ship, so it just kind of sits here floating in the parchment water that it's in. Some of the things that we struggled the most with in this was definitely, first off, just trying to figure out what layout we wanted to do. And once we had the basic design of that, everything kind of fell into place pretty quickly, which we, of course, did at the beginning of the semester, but I wasn't personally satisfied with it for quite a while until we came close to the end of the semester, and I realized, you know, we're trying to make this a little too complex, too difficult. So we decided to just keep it fairly simple and try to enhance the simplicity of it as best as we could. So instead of making really complex or over-the-top animations, we just used this awesome pirate ship SVG that Stephanie made, and made an animation that's fun and also doesn't necessarily take away anything from the page if it doesn't work. So that way it gives a little more eye candy, gives something extra for those who can see it, and for those who are on legacy browsers that maybe can't see animations, it doesn't necessarily take away from the page itself if it's disabled. The other big thing we ran into an issue was the parchment here. Certain times we actually found that like the parchment became really ugly at times. You can see the benefits right here. It looks a little fuzzy, but it's not too bad. And basically the way we ended up working with that was, instead of making just a straight background image, we actually ended up using a border image with the fill property. So I was thinking of at first doing a border image where we'd slice off the sides of each border. I didn't know how well that was going to work, and instead I ended up noticing that you can do a border image with a fill property, so it basically worked kind of as a makeshift background image, but maybe a little bit cleaner with how it handles the borders themselves. So using the good parchment background that Daniel found, it made it so we could have something that was a PNG file that still looked graceful when it shrank and stretched. The worst it gets is about right here, where you can see it stretches pretty far, but it still looks like parchment. If you go too far, like where you're no longer really on a page anymore, it starts looking like a plank of wood instead of parchment, which still honestly fits the pirate theme in my opinion. So it's pretty cool, I think. I'm pretty pleased with how it turned out. We all worked pretty hard to make it work, so all I can say now is I'm glad it's done. I hope you enjoy.